what were some of the most common ones that you worked with? And what would you say, in your opinion, were the common causes of each of those conditions?
So I saw a lot of sports injuries and saw a lot of ankle sprains. That's just a lot of the time, like that is bad luck, right? So I had ruptured of two of my lateral ligaments last year. That was jiu-jitsu. Someone very recklessly picked up my ankle and just yanked it, and it literally went pop, like loud. Like
Yeah.
everybody in the gym heard it. Was like, "What's that?" I was like, "That's my ankle." I couldn't have done anything about that. But there are some people who get, and like, for example, you're playing football, right? Someone tackles you and then your ankle rolls over, and like, these kind of things. These are traumatic injuries, and you can't really avoid that, if that makes sense. Some people were just training badly. So what I mean by that is, like, you got a runner and you ask them, tell me about your exercise throughout the week. And they go, oh, I do a 5K run on a Monday, and I do a 5K run on a Thursday, and I do a 10K run on the weekend. And I'm like, okay, great. Anything else? I'm like, wow, isn't that enough? And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you do any other form of exercise? They're like, I just told you. And I'm like, well, would you agree that an apple is good for you? And they'd be like, yes. And I said, well, if I have an apple for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week, 2 in a weekend, do you think that's healthy? And they'd be like, no, I see where you're going with this. And I'd be like, yeah, exercise should be a balanced exercise, a diet of balanced exercise, just like, your diet that you eat. And they're like, huh. I was like, yeah, you need to do a bit of strength conditioning, aerobic work, anaerobic work, your endurance, your stretching, your mobility, your core, your sense of proprioception, all this kind of stuff. You need to mix it all in. And then they'd be like, oh. And I'd get these, like, runners were like my biggest group that would come to me. I love runners, Otherwise, I'd be a very poor surgeon at the time. It was just great because, like, they were running for their mental health, and all they would do is run. And their weakness was so evident so easily. So, for example, you'd say stand on one leg, and their balance was all over the place, and their glutes were really weak. I'd be like, go up on your tiptoes, and they could just do it with 2 feet. I'd be like, do one leg now, one-legged tiptoes. Oh, and they'd be all over the place, and they'd have super tight calf muscles and everything. And I'd be like, you're compensating, and because your compensations, you're causing contractures and weaknesses elsewhere, then you end up with deformities, and this also predisposes you to injuries and running injuries and, all this kind of stuff, and runner's knee and, jogger's knee and all the plantar fasciitis or whatever it is. And so, that was, I'm just telling you about, like, some of the injuries and the ankle sprains and blah, blah, blah. But I loved ankle sprains because I would treat them non-operatively, but someone who had recurrent ankle instability with then stretched out ligaments, and you could feel it when you examine them, and also on the MRI scan you could see it. So their ligament, instead of being short and thick, was long and wavy because it's lax. So, the ligament should be nice and tight, and what it does is it doesn't stop movement, it limits the movement. So it takes you to an end range after which it won't go further. That's the whole point with the stability. So the ligaments don't prevent movement, and there's an ulnar collateral ligament in the thumb, but it stops my thumb bending all the way back to my forearm. Okay. And that's why but if the ligament was wavy and shot to pieces, like, and baggy, then they were always going to have instability, no matter what amount of physio and blah, blah. And these people had typically had severe ankle sprains, like 3-4 times, hadn't treated it properly, hadn't managed it. So now they are where they are. So the surgery would involve making incision and literally double breasting and tightening the ligament again. And I would get great results. I'd get people back doing sports and stable ankle and change their life. And, they message me going, look at me, I'm on the top of a mountain. Thank you so much. I'm back playing football, so I'm running again. So, that was nice. So I really liked that kind of surgery.
Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.